Hello everybody, what is going on? It is Voodoo here, and welcome to a Flight Simulator 2004 video. I tried to take some footage, I should say, of a flight back last year, and it did not turn out so well. It looked pretty bad with the camera, and I actually wound up running into another plane by accident and crashing. So now I've actually figured out a way to record my flights using my Elgato game capture. And so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be doing a flight for you guys. This flight's going to be from Las Vegas International Airport, McCarran, to Los Angeles International Airport, LAX. So we're running Flight Simulator 2004, so yes, I know it's not FSX, I'm behind the times, but I do not have a machine that is currently powerful enough to run Flight Simulators. So on FS9, we have a couple of add-ons that I'm running with it. I'm going to show you, I'll give you an external view of the plane. Hold on, no I'm not, because my, I forgot to plug my joystick into the computer. That was real smart. Hold on. Okay. Throttle's gonna go crazy because... Alright, there we go. So as you can see, we have real-world planes in here. We got Southwest and United. Old colors, again, because this is 2004, so it's outdated. A heavy Virgin Atlantic over there. So this is an add-on I'm running, which is called, God, what is it called? Ultimate Traffic, that's what it is. Ultimate Traffic for Flight Simulator 9. And we also have a program that lets me put passengers on my plane and actually lets me do a flight and gives me like scores and feedback on my flight. So what we're going to do here is we're going to get started. I'm going to walk you through everything I'm doing. So the first thing I'm going to do, I fly through virtual cockpit, but I'm going to show you the first three things I do on this page before we get started. First of all, as you can keep seeing, it's showing me that my altimeter is set incorrectly. So I'm going to hit B on my keyboard, and you saw the altitude change there. I set it to the proper pressure that's right now in Las Vegas. Then I'm going to come here, and I'm going to switch from nav to GPS, and that's going to switch my navigation panel here to track the GPS. Okay, so it can automatically track GPS. And then we're going to turn on our lights. We're going to turn them all on, and then we're going to turn off the ones we don't need right now, which are all of these. And we're actually going to turn pitot to heat. We're going to switch to our virtual cockpit now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my add-on, which is called FS Passengers. And I'm going to load my plane full of passengers. So it says we have 131 passengers, which is 89% of your aircraft's capacity. So we're going to say OK. And yes, the clicks you hear on my mouse, obviously. So we're going to load our plane full of passengers. We're going to set our destination for KLAX, which is Los Angeles International Airport. Right, there we go. Our flight ID, it really doesn't matter what it is, so they want us to do 941, so 941. Now, I use an online website called fuelplanner.com to tell me how much fuel I should be putting in my plane. It tells me 13,597 pounds for this particular flight. It is a short flight, so we're going to get approximately that. We can't get perfect, but we'll get approximately 13.5. That's very, very close. And so to balance the weight of the plane, as you can see, this caret here is denoting where the balance of the plane is. We're going to add a little bit of rear cargo. This plane right in the middle. So we're good. We're going to load it up immediately. I'm going to enter my takeoff speeds. So we've got those. So now we're full. So now you're going to start hearing the cabin announcement. I'm going to turn on the seatbelt sign. Alright, now before anything, we're going to go over here to our speed, autopilot speed. We're going to set that for 250 knots. And now we're set up to call ATC and get our clearance to Los Angeles. Go ahead and move this over here out of our way. Alright, so they want us to climb to 10,000 feet right after we take off. So we're going to set that in the altitude hold of the autopilot. Turn that on. Alright. So we copy all that good stuff. Alright, so now they want us to contact the ground to get our taxi information. Go ahead and do that. So they're telling us our taxi instructions, which runway and how to get there. Alright, so we're going to acknowledge that. Oh, I don't think you guys have audio. That's disappointing. Oh, you guys don't have audio because the audio for some reason is not coming through HDMI. Alright, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. This is probably not going to sound too great, but what I'm going to do until I can figure out how to get audio to go through the HDMI out is I'm actually going to I'm going to take out my headset here. So we've got audio coming through. Whoops, I just disconnected. I'm actually going to record the audio through the computer microphone through my snowball here. This is probably going to sound really bad, and I apologize for that, but until I can get audio out through through the HDMI, this is what I'm going to be forced to do for this particular flight, okay, but this is just a test anyway. So, now that we've gotten our taxi instructions, we're going to turn on our progressive taxi. Alright, we're going to take off the parking brake, and we're going to back up and make a turn. The tail's going to turn out to the right here, alright? So here we go with that. Alright, so there's our backup. And again, guys, I apologize for the bad audio for the game. I know it's going to be bad for this episode, but it is what it is. Alright, I'll mess around with the settings so at the next flight, hopefully, we can get the audio from the game direct captured. Alright, so we backed up. We're ready to taxi to the runway to take off. So I'm going to go back to virtual cockpit. And I'm going to set my flaps, which was to 5, which takeoff flaps, which helps give lift to the plane at slower speed. So now we're going to increase throttle, and we're going to start taxiing to the runway to take off. So I'm actually playing this on my 46-inch TV right now. The laptop I'm using to run the sim has an HDMI out port in it, and that's what allows me to not only play it on this big TV, but also to get it through the Elgato, because without it, I would not be able to direct capture visuals for now with the Elgato. I'm actually going to bump up the live commentary a little bit. And then that way, you should be able to hear my voice better. Maybe the audio, I don't know. So yes, guys, I know the graphics are a little outdated or whatever. As I said, this is Flight Simulator from 2004 running on a pretty standard laptop. Really no great, graphic capacities or whatever in this laptop, so... not the best graphics, but I still really like Flight Simulator 2004. I'm very comfortable playing it. I've been playing it since 2004. If I could run Flight Simulator 10, I would, but I don't have the ability to. Now, I will say that air traffic control in this game is pretty terrible. It's very unrealistic, air traffic control. And actually, the program I use that has these AI planes on it, like this Continental here, is also pretty bad because the planes basically act as if you don't exist. So they will taxi into you. They will the last me the old camera, not even HD standpoint. It wasn't exactly the best. Hold on, I'm just moving stuff around here, the microphone and the laptop, but yeah, definitely wasn't the best display of the sim. So I had an idea, and I said this might actually work with the Elgato, and sure enough, it does. So another thing that I've noticed is I see a lot of these flights and such on YouTube, but they never have any sort of commentary over them. Sort of like, gameplay and stuff of, regular video games. In the old days, they didn't have any commentary, and so a couple of people put commentary over it and kind of revolutionized that into, oh, I can feel the wind already, this is going to be a windy takeoff. Kind of revolutionized Let's Plays and playthroughs and walkthroughs on YouTube to include live commentary. I guess I'm kind of looking to do the same thing with these flight sim videos, because none of these flight simulator videos have any sort of commentary, which is fine if you're somebody like me who has been doing flight sim for a long time and, understands exactly what's going on. But it's basically useless to someone who's just a casual observer and wants to know, hey, what is flight sim all about and what's actually going on. For them, it's kind of pointless because they have no idea what's happening, and they're not being told. So I'm going to be doing commentary over these and telling you exactly what I'm doing and what's going on in the game, and that way people who do flight sim, obviously can watch it as always, and those who are more casual fans will know exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it during the flight, and maybe you can learn something about you know, flying and commercial flight, and maybe get interested in possibly getting the sim yourself. So yeah, that's basically why I'm doing what I'm doing. So we're getting close now actually to our runway. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and tune in the tower. Just cleared this Delta 757 coming in to land here. I just cleared him to land, so I'm going to have to sit and wait while he lands. So I'm going to request takeoff clearance from the tower, and they're going to tell me to hold short, obviously. This guy's landing, but... Alright, so they're telling me to hold short for the 757 to land. And I'm going to say okay. There's 3 planes on their way in. Hopefully some of them are going to the other runway. There's 25 left. So we don't have to sit here all day, but I guess we'll find out. So for now, we just sit and wait, which I know is very entertaining. But we gotta wait for this Delta to come in. And that's the thing about this FS, not the FS passengers, but the ultimate traffic, is that whenever you start a flight or whatever, they will basically place a bunch of aircraft who are supposed to be landing around that general time, all clustered together like you're seeing right now, landing at a particular airport. And so not very realistic, because the sim doesn't really put it, you know, it doesn't start it in medias res, you know, like in the middle of a regular day. It kind of spawns everything at the time. So this Southwest is landing on the same runway. With any luck, this Delta won't get off the runway in time, and they'll make the Southwest fly around, so we don't have to sit here and wait all day. So the Delta just landed. They cleared the Southwest, but if this Delta doesn't get off the runway fast enough, this Southwest is not going to be able to land. They're going to have to fly around. I'm thinking that's exactly what's going to happen. Although they're talking to this other Southwest. This Southwest is actually landing on 25 left, so they're going to... So we may have to wait for this other one to land. I don't know. Let's just find out. So they're landing on 25 left, which is the runway right there. Landing on our runway. And this guy's getting close, so if this Delta doesn't get off in time, he'll have to go around, but we'll find out. It's going to be close, I think. Oh, I got off. Alright, so we gotta wait for this guy to land. He's the last one. So he'll land, and then once he gets off the runway, we'll be clear to go. He's gonna touch down over there. He's down. When he leaves, when he gets off the runway, they're gonna clear us to go. So we just gotta wait a few more seconds here. They'll tell us that we're good to go. So this is going to be a really short little flight over here. Pretty quick jump from Las Vegas to Los Angeles. Kind of need to keep the flight somewhat short. And I'm going to be uploading these as full flights from start to finish. And if I don't keep the flights relatively short, it's going to be insanely long videos that no one will watch, so. Hopefully he gets off soon and we'll be on our way. Come on, any day. Any day now. Alright, he's turning right now, see him. Alright, good. He's gone, so we should be clear to take off now. Yep. Alright, so we're going to turn on all of our lights. Clearance. Here we go. Turning radius on these planes isn't the best. Alright, so now I'm going to look down a little bit here so I can see my speed. Halfway. Speed up a little bit more, and we'll start taking off. With my rudder controls here to blowing off the runway. About 140 knots are going to lift the plane up and be on our way here. Assuming we don't get blown off the runway. As you can see, I'm fighting it. Try to... So there's our rotate. Got some wicked crosswinds. Alright, so we're up. So positive rate of climb, so up come the landing gear. I'm going to set my autopilot now and let go of the stick. So the autopilot's got the plane, I'm no longer flying. I am controlling the speed, but that's all I'm controlling. So we're going to go to our departure. We hit 180 knots, so I'm going to retract the flaps. Whoa, you see the wind hit us right there. It spun. So let's contact departure. So when we hit 220 knots, that's when we will fully retract the flaps, which is about right now. We're going to maintain the speed through autopilot, and we're going to start turning now. So now they told us a heading to turn to specifically, but we don't really need to worry about that because through this nav hold switch that I just activated, it's going to automatically follow the route that we programmed in, which I'm actually about to show you because now that we're off the ground, I'm going to pull up the GPS here. So there it is. Nice and big. We're going to zoom out. To show the route, and I'm going to turn on the terrain. So there you go. So there's the GPS. Here's our route. These are the intersections, things like that, that we're going to be hitting in the air on our way to the airport. And since we turned that switch to GPS right at the beginning of the flight, and we activated that nav hold switch up there that's lit up, our plane is going to automatically track that route. Turn to it and track it for us. Since this is a short flight, we're going to be cruising at a relatively low cruising altitude of 28,000 feet. Now we're going to be going at 28,000 because whenever you're headed from east to west, you cruise at an even number flight level. So that would be like, you know, 28,000, 30,000, 32. And when you're going the opposite way, west to east, you do the odds. So that would be like 27,000, 29, 31,000, etc. And we are obviously going from east to west, so we'll be at an even number of 28,000, which is pretty low cruising level, but so there's a crew announcement. I have no idea if you were able to hear that through the microphone or not, but regardless of that. So we're climbing at 2,200 feet speed. And once we hit 10,000 feet, we're going to increase our speed because 250 knots is actually the speed limit for planes under 10,000. Once you hit 10,000, you can speed up. Telling us to cruise again. Flight level 180, it just means 18,000 feet, so that's what we're going to set. Acknowledge that instruction after they let us. Alright, and the co-pilot said above 10,000 feet because we can speed up now, so we're going to speed up to 300 knots, and above 10,000 feet we can turn off our landing. Don't need that anymore. And we're on our way. So this is pretty much the easy part of the flying, which is most of the time it's actually pretty easy. Because we're letting the autopilot do all the work. Now the next critical altitude we're going to hit is actually 18,000, which is what we're climbing to right now. Because at 18,000 feet, you set your altimeter to 29.92. As you can see down here right now, it's set at 29.69. And the reason for that, without getting too, you know, complicated or specific, they're handing this off now to Los Angeles Center. As soon as I switch over to them, I'll explain the best way I can what this setting means and why above 18,000 feet you set it to 29.92. As you can see, it says in mercury, that's the chemical mercury, that means millimeters of mercury. So more or less, this altimeter, and see, they actually give us the altimeter settings when they tell us, and we're off, so we'll set it to the right one. This altimeter actually works off of pressure. So whatever the pressure is at the local area in millimeters of mercury, you set that in this window, and the mechanism basically converts pressure into altitude. So since pressure, you know, always varies on a specific spot, pressure is never the same day to day, really. It changes depending on the weather and low pressure systems, high pressure systems, and the weather and whatnot. You have to set the correct pressure in order to get the correct altitude readout. Well, above 18,000 feet, basically what regulation states is we say, okay, well, above 18,000 feet, everybody's just going to have a standard pressure. So above 18,000, the standard pressure, you set 29.92 millimeters of mercury in the window, and basically that means that all aircraft above 18,000 feet are going to be set to a standard pressure and therefore standard altitude. So they'll all be basically set at a standard altitude so that all planes are on the same level, so to speak. Above 18,000 feet, all planes just set a standard pressure of 29.92. Basically, the pressure is disregarded above 18,000 feet, and all planes just set 29.92. It's just standard practice at that altitude. So we're almost there now. Again. There we go. 260, so that's 2,000 below our cruise level. 60, and you heard the announcement right there. Hopefully you did through the microphone. He said transition altitude, that's what that means. So when I hit B, on my keyboard, this is going to set to 29.92, and you'll see the altitude jump. So we'll hit B. Boom, and you saw that big jump in the altitude, 29.92. It says now, and our altitude is now standardized above 18,000 feet. And we really don't have to do anything other than that. So all we have to really do now is wait until we hit our cruise level of 28,000 feet. Once we do that, we'll set our cruise speed, and we'll take off the seatbelt sign for the passengers. It's not going to be a very long, it won't be off for very long, because very quickly we're going to be descending to Los Angeles Airport because it's a quick flight. Now generally, you know, when I fly and do these type of things, when I hit cruise altitude, I, you know, serve the passengers food, I serve them drinks. If it's a particularly long flight, I'll play an in-flight movie, and basically all of that contributes to their satisfaction. See, the passenger's opinion is exceptional. While we started at 15 p.m., which is 3 o'clock p.m., we estimate the passengers ate just before and will be hungry in about 2 hours. It doesn't really matter because we don't have time to feed them food anyway on this flight because it's so short. But it just gives you some stats. It shows you, you know, from where to where, our flight distance and all this other stuff. And just gives you some readouts, remaining fuel allow. This will go up. We're just burning a lot of fuel right now because we're climbing. Stuff like that. So this is just the in-flight report, and it's a good, you know, it's good to check that during the flight to see what your passengers, you know, how they think of the flight, if they're hungry and whatnot. So you can actually zoom in here on the GPS. Now, generally the way I know we're about to descend is when you set it here to the range of 100 nautical miles. When the airport starts to come into view, in the 100 nautical mile range, when it starts to come into view here, you know that you're probably going to get told to descend soon. So as you can already tell, at 150 nautical miles, it's already quite a ways in view. So it's not going to be too terribly long of a flight until we are descending, even though we haven't even reached our max cruise level yet. It's a very quick flight, but I like it because it is so quick and easy route to do. So here's just some of the scenery. You know, you got clouds and the desert out here. Just a look at our plane actually in flight here. It's just the default 737-400. I used to download planes and fly them all the time off the internet, you know. So now we're being told to cruise here to climb to our cruise level of 28,000 feet. At 28,000 feet. So we're almost to cruise level. So yeah, I used to download planes off the internet and fly them a lot, but those planes really they don't really fly right. Their mechanics are weird. The weight and all is off. Most of them don't have a virtual cockpit like this, which is the way I fly. And just got tired of using them, so now I just use the default planes. You know, the ones that you can get offline that are really the good ones are like the instruments and stuff are just pixelated out and, you know, unusable, but in the PMDGs, the iFly 737s that you can buy, all of these things are functional. Down here, the flight management computer, which as you can see is not able to be used. That's functional, so you can actually set, you know, your route and all into the flight management computer, which you cannot do here. But those are very, very expensive and actually require you to know how to truly fly a 737, because all of these instruments and such are able to be used. So we're at our cruise level. We're going to take off the seatbelt. It's not going to last very long, but it is what it is. So now, since we've hit our cruise level, I switched over from IAS, which is indicated airspeed, to Mach. And for those of you who are familiar with Mach, you'll know that Mach 1 is the speed of sound. So Mach 0.74 is 74% the speed of sound, and that is the cruise speed of this plane, the 737-400, at least on this sim. I don't know about real life, but the cruise speed is 0.74 Mach. So that's what we set as our cruise speed. And as you can see, we've leveled off at 28,000 feet. We're not climbing anymore. This teal line indicates where we should be pointed to follow this route over here. We're following it perfectly because it is automatically tracking it. As you can see, this box tells you how many nautical miles you are off your course. It says 0. We're perfectly on it. So when we hit this waypoint here, this HEC waypoint, the plane will automatically make a turn to the right. Hit civet if we even make it that far before they give us our approach instructions. The plane will automatically turn right again and head straight for the airport. So we're going to zoom into 100 nautical miles, and as you can see, the airport's already here. Now, it needs to come a little bit more into view because we're cruising at a low level. For us to actually start descending, we won't descend until we get a little bit closer than we generally would because we're at such a low altitude here. But it really won't be too much longer before we get descent instructions already. So. But yeah, at this point, there's really nothing to do except to wait. We're well into California now. So we're giving that Cessna some approach instructions into the airport. And yeah, you'll notice that from time to time when they're talking to another plane, they'll just say numbers. There'll be no actual call sign, like how I'm landmark, whatever numbers I am. They'll just say the numbers, and that's because, unfortunately, not all of the airlines, all the call signs and names through this ultimate traffic were translated into the computerized air traffic control voices, so they won't know how to say the name, so they just won't, and they'll just say the numbers. I would say most of the planes actually, or most of the airlines actually, they do say the names. I don't know how they do it because they're not programmed into this sim, and I'm assuming that the voices they use for the air traffic controller are not actual voice actors, but just a computerized voice reading the syllables. So I guess that's how they do it. I guess for the real life airliners and stuff, names, they just program it in, the computer voice translate it, but I guess for some names the computer can't translate it, and that's why they don't say it. So we just hit SEC, and as you can see, we're making an automatic slight right turn here to line up to head to Resor, our next waypoint. I didn't do anything. Realize that you could actually have the plane automatically track this flight pattern. For a very long time, I would manually turn the plane, or manually set the autopilot to a specific heading to turn the plane when I would hit certain waypoints, and then basically just happen to stumble across how to make the plane automatically follow the course. And basically that's how I learned how to fly this sim and learn all the stuff I learned about it. It was all from trial and error. Like, I really didn't look up almost anything on the internet or anything like that about how to fly. I just basically tried and failed a lot of times until I basically know how to fly the plane now and how to use all the instruments. that are available in this sim, which admittedly are not many, they're very limited. This is very far from, well, I wouldn't say very far, but it's made much, much simpler in the sim than obviously flying a real plane. In real flight and stuff, you wouldn't just take off from the airport arbitrarily, you know, and just fly willy-nilly. In real aviation travel, you have out of when you take off from runways, you have specific waypoints that you follow when you take off from specific runways, called SIDS, and I forget exactly what those are called. Or, I'm sorry, what that stands for. Something departure, whatever. So you will fly a specific SIDS pattern out of the airport. In this game, you just take off from the runway, and then they'll tell you to just turn, you know, arbitrarily. That's not done in real life. And also, you'll notice when we come into land, we'll just be basically free flying with whatever the air traffic control says, not following any specific waypoints on our way to the runway, which is also not accurate. In real life, just like you have SIDS for departures, you have something called STARS for the arrival, where you will follow specific waypoints all the way into the runway. And that's done, obviously, to prevent planes... See, oh, now we're getting told to descend, but it's done to prevent planes from hitting one another and to give standard arriving procedure. So we're going to acknowledge it. We're going to start descending here down to 22,000. So as you can see, extremely short cruise time. We're going to descend negative 2,200 feet. We climbed at 2,200. We're going to switch back now to indicated airspeed. We'll leave it at 300. We're going to turn the seatbelt sign back on because we're now descending. So, short-lived for those passengers. A lot of times, actually, in real life, when you have flights that are this short, and I've been part of that, I live in New Orleans, so I've flown to Houston before, which is a very short flight. They often won't even turn off the belt sign. They'll just leave it on the whole flight because you basically don't cruise. You basically climb, and when you hit your cruise level, you start descending very quickly short after. So a lot of times, they won't even bother turning the seatbelt sign off. They'll just leave it on the whole flight. But with this program I'm running, the passengers will get upset with me if I leave it on the whole time, so I need to turn it. So you can see the Pacific out there. We hit Resor, we're on our way to Yeni now, the next waypoint, and we'll just keep following this track until they give us our approach information. And then we'll basically not be flying on any specific route, we'll just be kind of free flying, turning as the ATC instructs us, until we hit the final vectors for land. But basically, the point I was trying to get at with those SIDS and STARS is that in real life flying, you will be following waypoints from the moment you take off to the moment you land. There'll be no you know, flying not going to specific. It's kind of hard to explain. I'll show you once we actually get to our, once they give us our approach, and I switch the GPS to show our approach. I'll show you what I mean. In this game, you don't fly, you know, specific waypoints to land. You just kind of free fly. I'll be able to show you that better. So we're descending. Looks actually very clear. So we've hit 22,000 feet. You can see the plane start to pull up, but it's going to go back down again because we're going to 16,000, which we were just told. Acknowledge that instruction, and again, once we descend below 18,000 feet, we will have to start setting our altimeter to the local pressure. We'll have to start taking that into account again, so that we get the right altitude, so we know how high we are. So we just hit the Yeni coordinate. We're on our way to Civet. Hit that in 2 minutes, unless we get instructions otherwise to deviate. Cabin announcement from the flight attendant, handing us off to a different frequency on Los Angeles Center. As we get closer, they're actually going to hand us off to SoCal Approach. As far as approach, 25 left is a runway at LAX, so that United is also going to be landing with us. But yeah, SoCal Approach is an extremely... Here we go, right now. So we're going to be landing on a different runway than them. So we're going to have to turn to heading 300. We're going to do an ILS approach for 24 right. So I'll explain what that means. But first of all, we're going to put in a heading of 300. And we're going to, instead of using this nav, we're going to switch it to heading select. So now it's going to fly based on what heading we put in here. We're also going to go over here. We're going to switch the GPS switch back to nav, because we're going to want the autopilot to follow the landing. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to set up the GPS to show us our approach into runway 24 left at LAX. So here you go, ILS 24 left. I'm sorry, it was 24 right, wasn't it? It was 24 right. So we're going to say, actually, I don't really remember, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go up here. I'm going to go to aircraft. I'm going to go to kneeboard, radio. So here's our radio transmissions, and it is in fact 24 right. We're going to select runway 24 right, ILS. We're going to select vectors to the ILS. We're going to load those in, and we're going to need to activate the vectors to final. Well, let me do something real quick, and then I'll explain to you what this is. We descend again to 13,000 feet, so that we can remain high enough to get over these mountains here. But we're also going to start reducing our speed all the way down to 240 knots. Be under the 250. So anyway, first of all, before I explain all what this is doing, we're going to go to the GPS, and we're going to actually hit a couple buttons and get to this page, which shows us radio frequencies for Los Angeles International Airport. We have our approach, our clearance frequencies, ground, departure, approach, all that kind of stuff, the tower. And here's our ILS frequencies. Now we're on ILS 24 right. So here it is, the last one. It's 108.5. So we're going to open up our radio stack here. And under the nav radio, see, they're handing us off to SoCal right now. Let's actually switch to that before we... Alright, in the nav 1, we're going to set 108.5. We're going to switch it to the active window and turn on the nav 1 radio. Now I'll explain to you the purpose of this. So first of all, let me explain what an ILS approach is. An ILS approach is an instrument land... ILS stands for Instrument Landing System. And so they give us a new altimeter setting. So instrument landing system, what it basically means is that our plane is going to lock onto two things. It's going to be called the localizer and the glide scope. And they're going to appear here. The localizer will appear horizontally. The glide scope will appear vertically when we get close enough that the radio starts picking that up. As you can see, it's a little unrealistic as far as how low they actually take you to the mountains. In real life, it would never be this low for these mountains, but because you have to be careful too, because sometimes they will actually fly you into a mountain, and that's what I mean about how bad the air traffic control is. They will sometimes have you descend into a mountain, so you have to be on alert. But I think we're high enough to just avoid these mountains. I hope we are. or I'm going to be pissed off. But anyway, so this localizer and glide scope, the plane will automatically intercept these, and the localizer will line us up with the center of the runway that we're landing, and the glide scope will set us on the proper descent rate to have us descend perfectly into the airport and land on our specific destination. So they're taking us down another 1,000 feet. Hopefully this will keep us still above the mountains. I'm not incredibly sure about that. So here's another plane we gotta watch out for. Crossing us, and again, the air traffic control will not divert us away from one another because the air traffic control is awful. So we have to keep a lookout that we don't hit these guys. So now they're going to have us climb back up to where we just were, because we hit the mountains, I guess. So as you can see, the air traffic control in this game is pathetic. They didn't spend any time actually programming it. I think we're fine on most mountains. I think the only one I'm concerned about is this one over here to the left, which is a little bit higher than normal. I don't know where this other plane went, so I'm hoping we don't hit it. Oh, there it is, right in front of us. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. So, we're gonna go right back down to 12,000. Just went back up to 13. So they're having us turn. They're having us turn left, and I guess this is going to be the truth moment about whether or not we're going to clear these mountains, because we're about to fly directly over them. It is my genuine hope. Oh look, Joshua approach. It's my genuine hope that we clear these mountains. That's why sometimes I don't enjoy flying to places that are around mountains. Because the air traffic control is so bad and they will fly you into them, I sometimes don't enjoy flying into Los Angeles for that reason. I think we're going to be fine. I don't think we're going to hit them. So anyway, yeah, the plane, as I was talking about the ILS, will automatically lock onto this localizer and glide scope, and the plane will line us up with the center of the runway and put us on the proper descent rate to hit the runway at the precise point that we want it to do. Now, in real life, these systems are actually designed if it's necessary. So now we're going to go down to 10,000. I guess they feel that we've cleared enough of the mountains. I'm actually going to hold off for a couple of seconds to descending because I don't want to descend into this mountain. So I'm going to allow myself to clear these mountains a little bit before I start descending. I'm also confused as to how they're lining us up here with the runway, but in real life these ILS systems are designed to... the plane actually can almost land itself. So if there's a lot of fog, if there's very low visibility at the runway, these ILS systems... oh, shut up. I don't want to hit a mountain. I think I'm over the tallest mountain, so I think I should be fine now. In this game, you cannot rely on the ILS to automatically land the plane for itself. You really have to take control of the aircraft and land it manually, which is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to let it line up with the runway, but at about 1,000 feet off the ground, I'm going to manually take control of the plane and land it myself. Which is what they do in real world anyway, as long as they can see the runway. If they can't, they'll let the plane almost land itself, basically. So explaining this GPS or whatever, as you can see, we're not following any specific waypoint right now. We're just out here floating around. We're not on any path. We've just been turning as the air traffic controller has been telling us to. we would have been staying on a specific prescribed route, all the way to runway 24 right. We would not be flying around like this with going nowhere, you know, not following anything. That's not really how it would be done, because you can't really just have planes flying willy-nilly across the sky, because there's a good chance they will run into each other, as we saw with that other plane that crossed right in front of our face. It's not safe. So there would be specific routes, again called stars, that we would be following, standard arrival somethings. 7,300 thing. So anyway, the basic idea, as you can see, there are some waypoints here. There's this little bitty magenta line, and a couple of waypoints here. Those are actually the final waypoints that we're going to be hitting on our way to the runway. They actually line up with the runway. But, as I mentioned, in real life we'd actually be following 160. They won't even let me acknowledge the instructions here. He just keeps talking. Okay. So basically, once again, the air traffic controller did a remarkably terrible job of setting this up for the ILS. I'm going to try to explain it to you as best I can why he just screwed. As usual, again, because the air traffic control is awful in the game. But the general idea of the ILS, I'm going to contact Los Angeles Town, let them know we're on our way in the lane. The general idea of the ILS is to come at this angle, as you can see that we're approaching this magenta line at. Come at an angle, but we should be much closer. We should be, like, here, where my pointer is, making this arrow. Because the idea is you need to obviously be close enough to intercept the localizer and the glide scope. You need to be close enough to pick up their frequency. Well, this far out, we're not close enough to pick it up. So what would generally happen is your plane would be recognizing the ILS over here, and you would come in at this angle, and once you flew through this path, the localizer would pick up and automatically turn you. But since we're too far, because the air traffic control sucks, it's not going to pick it up. So I'm going to have to manually turn to try to line up with the runway until we get close enough for the ILS to pick up. So I've slowed to 210 knots, I've hit 220, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the flaps to 2. And I'm going to actually start manually turning the plane. We should be at heading 249. So I'm going to actually manually turn the plane here to try to get on board. Now I'm not going to do it perfectly. And we will eventually get close enough for me to intercept the ILS, and then it will automatically take over for us. But I want to make sure that we don't go past where we're supposed to be at. And I think I did a pretty good job, actually, of doing that. Within a half a mile about of where I need to be. So I think I actually did a pretty good job of doing what I meant to do. But anyway, so we're going to basically keep going until you will see, as I mentioned, you're going to notice two things pop up, one here and one here, and when those pop up, what I'm going to actually be able to do then is I'm going to be able to hit this approach hold switch, and once I hit that, that's going to allow, see there they are right there, they just popped up. So I'm going to hit the approach. Now our altitude went out, I have to reapply that, and I'm going to explain to you why. But as you can see, our plane is going to have a little bit of a fit here because I didn't do it perfectly and the plane to adjust. And it's doing that right now. So you see this little purple indicator which is moving. You follow stars, and the stars will put you on that perfect angle to intercept this stuff. You don't have to rely on air traffic control to do it. You know, the stars you follow the stars vectors in, and you know they will put you on the perfect route. So, again, unrealistic. We're making dramatic turns left and right here to try to line up at the runway. I'm going to slow down again to 170 knots as we're getting closer. Our final landing speed will be about 140 knots. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit more to get an idea just how close we are. So we're going to start slowing down at 180 knots. I'm going to put on flaps 5. Again, the flaps are to provide lift to the aircraft when you're going at slower speeds, so you don't stall and fall out of the sky. You can see downtown Los Angeles over there. So yeah, the reason I had to do that thing with the altitude hold is because generally, again, when you come in at the proper angle and you're close enough, so we hit 180 knots, I'm going to lower the flaps, but this purple indicator is actually up here, pointed at the top, because you need to intercept the glide scope, which is what this thing is called, from underneath it. You need to be basically coming in too low, and you will intercept it, and once you're on the proper glide scope, it will take over. See how it just jumped up there? I'm close enough now to where I'm going to intercept it from below. So I'm going to turn off approach hold and reapply it. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow me to intercept this glide scope. So now, again, what I just did is basically based off of experience because I've done this a lot. We're very close to 170 knots now, so I'm going to lower flaps to 10. But yeah, just based off of experience, I've done, because the air traffic controller put us way too far out to intercept the ILS, I did a little manual correcting and got us exactly where we need to be now. So now we're fine. I'm actually going to turn off the GPS. I don't need it anymore. It's big. It's in my way. Let's go. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tune Los Angeles ATIS, which is basically the airport information, and I'm going to learn what the conditions are at the airport for me to land. So the wind's only at 8 knots, which is not bad. Good visibility. That's basically all I really need to know. There's our altimeter setting, which is 2989, which is already set. And as you can see, they're landing 4 runways. These are actually 4 parallel runways that are all facing the same way, which is nice. It's actually, in real life, they generally land all 4 of these runways. A lot of times in the sim, they'll only land a couple of runways, which clogs up traffic, but they're actually landing all of them. I'm going to do a quick scan outside of my plane here to make sure that there's nothing about to hit me, as what happened last time. You can actually see over there is Long Beach International Airport. JetBlue flies there quite a bit. Planes. There's a Tahiti Airlines coming from Paris. We're pretty much lined up with the center line, as you can see by that purple indicator. So 160 knots. Flaps are going to go to 15. I'm going to now lower the landing gear. So this big knob here is the landing gear. Once it gives me 3 green lights, I'll know everything's good with the landing gear, and there you go. So right now, so far, it looks like we're good. As you can see, the air traffic is really bad as these two planes are coming, hitting each other. Which is our final landing flap setting. See, the plane nose actually come down because we're getting more lift from the flaps. We don't need to have the nose so far up in the air to maintain our altitude. So that Tahiti is actually landing on the same runway that we're landing on. I think this United actually is going to be too, coming in from London. So I'm going to need to be careful. And look at this. See what I mean? How these planes are all about to hit one another. It's ridiculous. So what I'm going to actually wind up doing is I'm going to do a little trick that I usually have to wind up doing. And that is, when traffic becomes like this, and I know I'm going to be crashing and hitting people, I actually go into the options of the game and I reset the traffic. So I'm going to turn off airline traffic, and then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to turn it back on again. And what it's going to do is it actually clears the skies. As you can see, there's no planes around me now, so I can land safely. There's a good view of downtown Los Angeles, but I can actually land safely now without worrying about a plane hitting me. And oftentimes I have to do this again because of the unrealism of both air traffic control and the traffic software. Because they're both so unrealistic, many times I'm in a situation like that, especially at a busy airport like LAX, and I have to do that. So what you're going to notice, you see this glide scope is coming down. I also forgot to do this. I need to arm my auto spoilers, which are going to help me slow down when I land. But once that purple marker hits the dead middle, the plane is going to respond to that. It's going to turn off that altitude hold light over there. It's going to go off. See, there you go, it's off, and only the approach hold is on now, which means that the plane, as you can see, is lowering its nose automatically. I'm not doing that. And the plane is now automatically has lined itself up with the center line of the runway and is now on the perfect descent rate to land. And now I've been cleared to land into the airport. I'm going to acknowledge that. And fairly soon, we're going to let it automatically fly us for a little bit longer, but fairly soon I'm going to disengage the autopilot. I'm going to manually take control of the plane, and I'm going to automatically land, not automatically, sorry, I'm going to manually land the plane on the runway, on 24 right. When we hit the ground, we're actually going to cut the throttle just before hitting the ground. And when we hit the ground, the spoilers will come up, which is those little flaps on the top of the wings automatically. I just arm those. And I will reverse the thrusters, which is going to help us to slow down. So actually right now you're going to hear a noise. And that's the warning light, and that means that the autopilot has been turned on and I have control of the plane. So I am now manually flying the plane with my joystick. And I'm going to fly it all the way from here till we hit the ground. We're at 1,000 feet. We might get hit by a little bit of that wind. Right there, it is right there. I'm going to have to correct for that. And oftentimes, because of this wind, a lot of times I don't land directly on the central line. For the wind. Manually correct for the wind, because the ILS, when it gets hit by wind, it kind of freaks out. And it starts doing that dramatic turn stuff, and it'll really screw you up for actually landing. So I like to do it myself. So we're coming down probably a little bit high here. Generally there are lights next to the runways to help you with your descent rate, but again, unrealistically with this sim, there are no lights at this runway. There should be, but there are not. So we're going to land, it looks like, at a little bit of an angle. I'll do what I can to correct it before we actually hit the ground. So auto throttle has been turned off. We cut the throttle, and touchdown. I'm going to reverse the thrusters, and we're going to start pumping the brakes. Alright, we cut off the reverse thrust at 80 knots, and that was a very good landing, actually. Not bad at all, so 60 knots. So good, we've slowed down very well, and we're going to exit the runway now. We're going to do a couple of other things once we get off the runway here. So we're off the runway, I'm going to actually taxi up to, and I'm going to hold short of this runway, which is actually forward left. Acknowledge the ground handoff. I'm going to talk to them, they're going to tell us how to taxi to our gate. So I'm going to hold right here at this hold bar short of this runway in case there's taking off. So I'm going to turn this flight director off, we don't need it, we don't need those purple lines anymore. I'm going to turn off the nav radio so we don't get that annoying beeping that you might be hearing anymore. We don't need that. I'm going to acknowledge our taxi clearance, turn on the auto progressive taxi, and once again, in another stunning display of unrealism, they basically have us going backwards. As you can see, they want us to proceed backwards on a taxiway, take that one across the runway and go over there, which is completely superfluous considering we can just cross at this taxiway, which is exactly what we're going to do. Before we start taxiing, I'm going to turn off my strobe lights and my landing lights because we don't need those on the ground. And then strobe lights off, and we're going to commence our taxiing. Clearly, we're not going to back up and do what they want us to do. We're just going to cross this runway, cross 24 left, and turn left at the taxiway up there and pick up our route that way. So that's basically it, guys. That's the flight. Much more successful than the first. Oh. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as I sit here and tell you, much more successful than last flight, we get hit by a departing Boeing 747 as the air traffic control completely failed to inform us that there was a plane taking off right in front of us. So, for the second straight time, whenever I try to film a flight for YouTube, we get hit by the AI traffic and die. So, of course, it's going to tell us we crashed, to which we say, okay, even though it's complete nonsense. So, yeah, here we go. The aircraft collided with another aircraft. No emergency. We killed 14 people, injured 20 more. And, of course, they want to take 850 points away from us, take all kinds of money. And, of course, we're not going to record the flight. But anyway, I actually cannot believe that we got hit by yet another plane. But if I have to show you any more evidence that the realism just isn't there with this game, with the air traffic control, with the AI traffic, they're both really actually abominable. But it's the only thing in the game. There's really nothing to do. You just have to be attentive, and you have to pay attention to what's around you. Unfortunately, I didn't do that. I guess it's actually kind of my fault, because I know how bad this stuff is. That's actually new, though. I have never not been told of a plane crossing or taking off on a runway and taxi right into them. I have never been told that. That one's never happened to me, so I guess that's why I wasn't. But regardless, it happened. Certainly more successful anyway than the last time because I actually did land. The only things that would have happened had we not obviously done that, would we just taxi to the gate, let the passengers off, and they would have told us. Obviously, we would have had a positive result. We would have gotten positive points. They would have given us some points for making a good landing, for landing at the airport that we said we were going to land at, and that was a good flight. They would have just given us plus 200 or so points, 50 away, and they probably would have said here that the passengers were happy and they think reputation would have gone up. It's actually at 99% right now. It would have, probably stayed at 90%. But because of the nonsense of the air traffic control and the AI traffic, we taxied into a gigantic 747 plane that was going to Germany and killed everyone. Anyway, regardless of that, other stuff that you can see. Time. We cruised for only 10. Obviously, this would have been different. Let them off. It probably would have 100%. Other than that, you have seen basically how to fly, how to land. Pay attention if you're going to use FS passengers in ultimate traffic. How to pay attention to your surroundings because both the air traffic control and the ultimate traffic are pretty terrible and don't do a good job at all of keeping you safe. Anyway, that's it. We're obviously going to cancel this flight because I'm not going to record that. So yeah, they should have told us the whole show of that runway. It's going to restart the flight, which we're obviously not going to do. But, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The flight from Las Vegas to Los Angeles, which unfortunately ended in a fiery explosion and death for everyone involved. But that's how it goes. So that's the flight. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you found that crash at the end funny, because it was kind of funny. And yeah, that's it. So thanks, guys, for watching. Let me know what you think of the flight and the quality in which it was recorded in. And again, next time I will try to get the audio direct captured as well. And we'll try not to crash and die. So other than that, thank you guys for watching.